Hi folks, and welcome to this video on Act 4 Scene 1 of Macbeth. Now, just before we get into it, just a trigger warning, because we're going to be looking at the character of Medea today, and Medea does do some very unpleasant things. So if you don't want to watch this, that is absolutely fine. You can just skip on to the next video. Now, before we get into it, I want to do a quick check of your knowledge of the word allusion, okay? Because Shakespeare's making an allusion to Medea, or he is alluding to the character of Medea from mythology. So stop the video, jot down your thoughts on this word. What do you think it means? Can you think of any examples? And then start the video again when you're ready. Okay, so an allusion is a reference to another text. We might have a biblical or a mythological allusion. For example, in Act 1, Scene 3, when the witches say, "All hail Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Glamis," this is an allusion to Judas Iscariot in the Bible, who hails Jesus before he betrays him. So writers often use references to other texts to suggest things or to hint things, to add more layers to their meanings. And we're going to look at this section of Act 4, Scene 1 and think about how Shakespeare alludes to this mythological character of Medea. Now, if you've watched the previous video on this scene, and I hope you have, in that video I said I'm going to skip over this section in yellow and we're going to come back to it. So this is the time when we are coming back to this section. Now let's just read it first. Macbeth says to the witches, "Though ye untie the winds and let them fight against the churches, though the yeasty waves confound and swallow navigation up, though bladed corn be lodged and trees blown down, though castles topple on their warders' heads, though palaces and pyramids do slope their heads to their foundations, though the treasure of nature's germin all tumble together, even till destruction sicken, answer me to what I ask you." So Macbeth is saying, I want answers to my questions, even if all of these other things have to happen. And all of the things in the list that Macbeth gives are kind of natural phenomenons that he believes the witches can cause. So if we go from the start, he says, "Though ye untie the winds and let them fight against the churches." So this is the belief that the witches can control the weather. We've seen hints of that in Act 1 already. It's as if they can create these huge storms and use the winds to attack religious centres like churches. He talks about the yeasty or the yeasty waves confound and swallow navigation up. If you've ever seen yeasty beer, for example, you'll know that it's got froth on the top of it. Macbeth is talking about how the witches might be able to whip the waves up so that they're almost frothing. And this would confine and swallow navigation up. So it would stop ships from being able to navigate properly. It might swallow those ships up. Bladed corn lodged, trees blown down, castles toppled. So the idea is that the witches might be able to create such terrible weather that all of these things would be destroyed. Though palaces and pyramids do slope their heads to their foundations. Again, Macbeth is imagining these huge, strong fortifications absolutely destroyed. So here he thinks about the witches as being incredibly powerful. And this is where the allusion to Medea comes in. Now, I've got a copy of the cover of a book on the screen, which is a really, really good book, although not for the faint-hearted. There are lots and lots of trigger warnings associated with this particular text because the life of Medea is so dramatic, violent, painful. She suffers, but she also causes other people to suffer when she takes her vengeance on them. And it's by Rosie Hewlett. Anyway, it's a great read, but as I say, not for the faint-hearted, and just be prepared for the kind of hard-hittingness, is that a word? The hard-hitting content in it. But it does translate this kind of Greek mythology into a format that we'd be more familiar with reading these days. So anyway, who is Medea? Well, she's a sorceress in Greek mythology. She's the daughter of King Aeetes of Colchis, the niece of the sorceress Circe. And there's a great book as well about Circe if you fancy reading it. Circe is just the title of the book. And she's helped by Hecate. Now, we've seen Hecate in Macbeth already, supporting the three witches with their magic. Well, in Medea's story, Hecate helps Medea with her magic. Medea becomes the wife of Jason of the Argonauts. Now, if you know that story, Jason comes to Colchis, where Medea lives, and he wants to capture the Golden Fleece. And King Aeetes doesn't want Jason to get this fleece, but Medea helps Jason to get it, and then they run away together and they get married and they have several children and so on. However, then after a little while, Jason decides that he wants to marry someone else. Medea obviously not happy with this, so she takes her revenge on him by killing the girl that he wants to marry. Also, she murders her own children at this point. Now, perhaps there's a little reference to this, a little allusion to this in what Lady Macbeth says towards the beginning of the play, when she says that she would have dashed the brains of her own children out. So Medea is a magical character, a very powerful character, a powerful woman, but also the kind of person who takes revenge to the extreme, very violent, and she crosses every single moral boundary that kind of human civilization has created. So let's have a look at how Medea is described. Now, I've got the section from Shakespeare on the left and the section from Ovid's Metamorphoses on the right, where he describes Medea. And you can see that I've used the colours to kind of match up the references that Shakespeare makes with the description that Ovid makes. So Ovid says, "By my charms," this is Medea speaking, "by my charms I calm the troubled sea and rise it when calm." And Shakespeare talks about how the witches can confine and swallow navigation up by controlling the yeasty waves. And Medea is talking about how she can make the sea totally calm and still, or she can bring it to life again. Ovid continues, "I disperse the clouds and I bring clouds upon the earth. I both allay the winds and raise them." So she can calm the winds, she can make them disappear, and she can bring them back to life again, just like Shakespeare's witches can untie the winds. Ovid continues, "I break the jaws of serpents with my words and my spells. I move to the solid rocks, the oaks torn up with their own native earth, and the forests as well," while Shakespeare talks about the trees being blown down. And then Medea says, "I command the mountains too to quake and the earth to groan." Shakespeare talks about how buildings can fall to their foundations. And then Medea finishes the ghosts to come forth from their tombs. Well, we've had that in Macbeth as well, with Banquo coming out of his grave. So we can see that in this list of powers that the witches have, there's quite a clear allusion to Medea from Ovid's Metamorphoses. Now, the big question is, though, why would Shakespeare do this? Well, it amplifies our sense of the witch's power and malevolence. Medea, in Shakespeare's time, would have been a well-known figure who completely symbolises female power and black magic, and how this power can be used against humanity to get what she wants and to get her revenge. But also, she's a character who crosses every single moral boundary. She murders her own children. And this links in with Macbeth, who is crossing every single moral boundary. He's killed his king. He's ordered the murder of his best friend. He's unsuccessfully ordered the murder of Fleance, who is a child, an innocent child. And now he's about to command the murder of Macduff's children, who are completely innocent. There's no prophecy about these children at all. There's no reason for Macbeth to kill them other than from taking revenge on Macduff. So, like Medea, Macbeth crosses every moral boundary. Like the witches in Macbeth, Medea represents kind of female power, malevolence, and revenge, and so on. So an interesting little detail in the play. If you were writing about this in an exam, I wouldn't spend too much time explaining it. What I would say is, in this section of the text, Shakespeare alludes to the mythological character of Medea in order to amplify our sense of the witch's power and malevolence. Okay, thank you very much for watching. The next video will be on Act 4, Scene 2.